Hello everyone, welcome on in. It's Betting Weekly Dojo. It's episode 6 of our new betting show with myself, Nigel Seeley, and our resident professional gambler who joins me usually on a Monday. Today it's a Tuesday. It's Neil Channing. Good morning to you, Neil. How are things? Any sumo bets this morning or anything like that to report?
I actually haven't had since I mentioned it. I haven't had any further bets on the sumo. But my guy, I did bet on the. I bet a couple of the matchups on the sumo the other week when we were talking, but I did have a bet on a guy to win the whole shebang, and he's absolutely flying, Nige. They have 15 bouts, and my guy has won 10 out of 10. After they do 15 bouts, and whoever wins the most is the winner. So there's two guys that are 8-2, and my guy's 10-0. And I'm on at 9-1, so I'm quite excited about the sumo. Actually, now you mention it,
when you talk about the sumo, I mean, people have. Well, one thing I've got to say: this huge amount of comments about the sumo, huge amount of comments, well received for this podcast, and thank you very much for everybody who's watched it and who's subscribed to the channel.
I was wondering about that. Do we just delete all the bad ones really quickly? Have we got someone that's there 24/7 just scrubbing through the bad ones, or are there no bad ones?
Well, I think there are a few bad ones, but they're up there. But when they're being well received, people seem to forget the bad ones and only remember the pearls of wisdom that come from you channels. I mean, seriously though, I mean, what kind of levels of bets are you getting on the sumo?
Oh, tiny. I honestly, it was just I happened to bump into this guy. He's really into the sumo, and I just thought he said this bet, and I thought, well, I'll have to have a go. No, it's nothing. It won't. It barely pay for lunch.
Well, the 9-1 winner doesn't need much on to pay for lunch on a 9-1 winner. So it's
actually,
pretty good.
I did talk about the comments. I did look. A couple of people were saying, I disagree. I don't. I like to. I was saying last week how I like to have like high turnover, loads and loads and loads of small bets these days, because I find. That means I can still get on. I don't upset bookmakers so much, and I don't run into these problems with having to provide paperwork about source of funds and all that kind of. A couple of people said, "Oh God, I don't do that. I try to find things that are fantastic value and have an absolute lump on them." Good luck to you, is all I say. If you can still get those kind of big bets on when you find something that you think's got a kind of 10% edge. Well, long may it last. All I can say is that once you've been doing it for 40 years, people don't really like it when you wait 10 days and bet something at 5-1 that goes off 2-1. Whereas they'll give you a go if you seem to have. I had 13 bets on the NFL this week, 7 winners and 6 losers. I'd imagine some of the bookmakers that I dealt with think that I'm an idiot who knows nothing about NFL, because I think I went 0-4 with one guy, and one other guy thinks I'm a genius because I went 3-0 with him. But over the year, I think that helps you last a bit longer.
Yeah. We did tell. I think was producer John told us last week there was 250 registered sports or something. That was it. It was something like that. I can't remember how many registered sports he said. But we made the over and under how many sports. Any weird and wonderful sports that you've bet this week that Channing's were betting? I think I made something like 89.5 over and under Channing sports bet total in his lifetime. But any weird and wonderful ones made the cut last week?
No, not too many last week. No. I mean, the Olympics is the best time, isn't it, for betting a lot of weird and wonderful sports. The problem with a lot of these smaller sports is there's no real market in them. I have had some politics bets this week. I had a bet on who's going to be the next Conservative Party leader. And in the American election, I had a bet on who's going to win Michigan. So those were probably my most smaller markets that I dabbled in this week, really. But
there's no point in just telling us you had a bet. We want to know who you bet. Who's
going
to be
I did bet the Democrats to win Michigan, because I do have a view that I don't. Again, in the comments, I noticed someone was saying, "Oh, he thinks Kamala Harris is going to win. What an idiot." Or something like that. I don't really think she's going to win or lose. I don't really have a strong opinion on how she's going to get on. My view is that the market, and I said that last week, I thought the market will move in her favour. I think the polling will get stronger for her in the short to medium term of what we've got left of this election. So I noticed she shortened up a bit, actually, after I said that, and then after the incident on the golf course, there was a bit of money for Trump, but that seems to have dissipated now. I think post-debate, I just thought she'd shorten up again, really. And because of that, and there was another factor in Michigan where RFK he tried to get his name taken off the ballot, and he failed in a court case to do that. And I didn't think that the market in the UK reflected that and the importance of that news enough. So I had a little bet. It was around about 13 to 8 on, we'd say, in the UK. So whatever that comes to in
minus
American
162. Minus
yes,
162.
exactly.
So what about the Conservative? Who wins this? That's a party.
Well, I did bet Robert Jenrick, his favourite now. He was they had 6 candidates. They whittled them down to 5, and then they whittled them down to 4. And both votes where they got them down to 5 and down to 4, he was leading. But you could still get plus money on him. He was like plus $1.20, even though he was some way clear in the second vote. So I have to admit, I got involved at plus $1.20, a bit at plus $1.10, and he's about minus 160 now. So I'm quite pleased with that. I actually think he's probably still a bet, really.
But before we move on, before we go on to the topics we're talking about, Robert Jenrick, I mean, I know nothing about politics, and I choose not to know nothing about politics. I remember a very shrewd guy, the very first time I started working on the American market, he said to me, do not engage with anybody about politics on social media, and do not engage with anyone who hasn't got more than 1,000 followers. That was his advice, and I pretty much stand by that. I think it's pretty good. People who, or obviously I engage with people who watch his show who've got less followers and stuff like that. I'm not saying you need 1,000 followers, but there's no point in getting a conversation with someone about these kind of things.
I try not to argue about politics with people. I think I have my strong political opinions, and I make them quite clear. But I don't really want to get involved in arguments. But you'll only hear on this show, if I talk about politics, I'm literally only going to talk about it from a betting point of view. I'm not telling you that Kamala Harris is a good person or that Donald Trump isn't or anything. I just think her price will shorten up, and that the Democrats should be shorter to win Michigan. It doesn't mean I have any strong views on what they're going to do if they do win Michigan or win power or anything like that.
Just your bet on the Conservative Party leader. Now, I know nothing about it. A lot of the people in America who are watching the show, and obviously they're probably not really interested in the political scene over here. But how come this guy, during COVID, he come on, he was like a nobody. He was a laughing stock. I just couldn't understand the guy. He looked like somebody that I just thought to myself, how can anyone relate to him? And now all of a sudden he's come up like a racehorse on the rails, and he's now the heavy favourite.
He's a bit of a slick kind of David Cameron type, I think.
Do you think so?
He's quite a sort of slick guy. Kemi Badenoch is a little bit more into the culture war stuff. James Cleverly has, served in the previous regime, which could be against him. And Tom Tugendhat is kind of considered to be a more sort of a kind of centrist politician, although they're all sort of fairly right wing in the Conservative Party. So I don't know. That was my feeling. It's a bit obscure. I guess a lot of American people watching are thinking, "Wow, you guys get to bet on all kinds of things." It's mad, isn't it? I don't really get why. I understand there is an argument for saying that, if you have betting on politics in America, it could affect the outcome or, the idea of people making money out of politics. But when there is so much money in politics in America in terms of lobbying. The amounts of money spent on advertising, I'm sure a few small betting markets on it wouldn't hurt anybody. It's good to see. I'm glad that betting's becoming a bigger thing on politics in America. It's a fun thing to bet on. People are interested in politics, and why should they not bet on it?
I have never had a political bet in my life.
Well, there you go. Robert Jenrick, you can make that the first one.
I'd rather bet on Britain's Got Talent or American Idol or something like that rather than that. Anyway, let's have a look at the prices now to win the election. It's minus 120 Kamala Harris plus even money with Donald Trump, which are available on the Bet Rivers website. So if you do want to have a bet, Bet Rivers do have the market there available for you. Let's have before we move on, we're talking about the likes. The last episode of those had almost 200 likes, Neil. Now, that's one of our highest ever likes. Well, it's the way you did it, your subtle approach to get people to like it, and 63 comments, which was that's really, really good for everybody. Actually. Yeah, it's very, very good. So, if you are enjoying this podcast, Neil, you know what to say. Just give us that little like. Doesn't cost anything, as you said. Just give us a little like. Give us a comment. It helps the algorithm
subscribe as well. We got a few subscribers last time. Yes. That doesn't cost anything, even though it sounds like it should do.
So should I change the word to subscribe? Join, shouldn't it, or something?
Yeah, I know it's bad. That
subscribe makes you feel like you. If I say to my dad, "Oh, you got to subscribe," he thinks, "How much is coming out of my bank account? $5?" Exactly. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't want to do it. So just join us by pressing the subscribe button. Anyway, that's enough about that. This week's show, and there was a story that caught your eye, Neil, stateside, about something that's really been the scourge of bettors over here with the palpable error rule. It's something that's a grey area for bettors. It's something that's a grey area for the people over the years here, where bookies use it as a defence mechanism to avoid wages that they don't think were fairly accepted. A story that caught your eye last week on that.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. So week 1 of the NFL, there's a fellow called Christian McCaffrey. He's a brilliant running back, and he plays for San Francisco 49ers. And they were playing the Jets, and it was kind of widely known, I think, that he was carrying some kind of injury and that his participation might be limited in the game, or maybe he wouldn't play at all. I don't think it was really a secret. And so Jordan Mason, who was likely to step up and take the role of running back if McCaffrey didn't play, had his yards quoted, his total rushing yards quoted at 13.5. Under and over. So, of course, if McCaffrey doesn't play, his yards are going to be a lot higher because he's going to be in the game, every down. Anyway, he didn't play McCaffrey, and people had a couple of days of knowing that he might not play when they could bet on Jordan Mason, and they did bet on Jordan Mason. But then, of course, some people bet on Jordan Mason being over 13.5 after Christian McCaffrey was announced as not playing, in the short period of time that it took the bookies to take their prices down, reassess the situation, and put a new line up on Jordan Mason. Now, in that situation, in the UK and in Europe, we have this thing, the palpable error rule. If a bookmaker makes an error, palpable, it means clear. It means certain error. Now, in that situation, bookmakers, generally speaking, this side of the pond, bookmakers have a rule in their terms and conditions that says that they can cancel the bets. Now, in America, that is not considered to be a thing that they can do. There was a case in Atlantic City a couple of years ago when, they have these self-service terminals where you can do your parlays and stuff. And whoever had been typing in the odds ready to go on the terminal for the week had put the handicaps the wrong way around. I think it was college football, so they had some big handicaps. Teams that were sort of a 45.5 point favourite were listed as a 45.5 point underdog. So instead of getting minus 45.5, you could get plus 45.5 on this team who were very certain to win. And some guy spotted it straight away, and he thought, well, I'll keep my stakes quite small, and then no one will notice, and I'll just do, a lot of multi-leg parlays. So he did sort of 8-teamers and 10-teamers and 12-teamers with all the really obvious ones, and obviously, he was in a very good position to win a lot of money, and he did. He won a 6-figure sum, but did he win it, or did he cheat? Really, that's a kind of a question. Now, I think over this side of the pond, I think people kind of would say, well, he cheated, really, didn't he? He cheated. We have a law in the UK which came in 2007. Cheating in gambling is actually illegal, and you can do up to 5 years in prison for cheating in gambling. The thing is that the law doesn't really define what cheating in gambling is. And there's only ever been one person that's been charged with it in that time. Recently we had a case where a couple of politicians bet on when the general election would be, and they were in the meeting when Rishi Sunak told them when the general election would be. And this was referred, and there was a consideration about whether they should be charged with cheating and gambling. And it was decided that it's too complicated. We can't really prove it. We don't really know when they heard. Maybe Rishi Sunak could have changed his mind, so it wasn't like a certainty. And so no action was taken. But in this case with Jordan Mason, the company in question wrote to the gamblers who had bet over Jordan Mason and said, "Well, we're just going to scrap your bets. We're not. You know, they don't count. You bet on something where we got the price wrong." I can see the reason for the palpable error rule. You know, for example, if I set up a bookmaker and I invest a couple of $1 million in setting up my company, and then a bloke comes and works for me, he's been there 5 minutes, and he decides that he's going to collude with some friends of his to try and put me out of business. He could set up the prices on my self-service terminal, put the handicaps the wrong way round, get his pals to come in, they could have a bet. Suddenly they've won hundreds of thousands of dollars. I give him the sack. He gets fired after a week of working, and he splits the money with them. You know, that would be a really easy crime for someone to carry out, and it wouldn't really be my fault. And I don't think that, you know, I think punters should, generally I'm in favour of punters and against bookmakers. I think punters should be defended against bad practice by bookmakers. But I do think bookmakers have to exist, and I think without the palpable error rule, it would be hard to get a good night's sleep if you're a bookmaker. You'd be constantly worried that your staff might type something in the wrong way round, whether by accident or by design as a fraud thing. I think it'd be hard to operate. I don't know. What do you think, Nigel?
Well, I think on that case, yes. But I think the problem is, especially over here, is that bookmakers use it for absolutely everything. I mean,
that's the thing, isn't it? Who decides what's a palpable error?
That is the problem. I mean, there's so many situations where bets are being voided over here, and we have a governing body that's not fit to regulate over here, as far as I can see. Which I'm sure you work a lot closely on terms of the findings from in the government in terms of the gambling commission over here. But I think in America they're a different breed, aren't they? I mean, they have lawmakers, they have regulators who are stringent, and I think there's all the cases that go to court. I can't remember many of them ruling in favour of the bookmaker rather than the bettor. Whereas over here, it's completely the other side. I think that if you go to court with a gambling issue here, or you go to court with suddenly you're guilty before you've even walked into the courtroom, as far as I can see, because gambling is quite a dirty word at the moment over in the UK. So I think it's really different.
If it's a thing where somebody clearly has just typed something up wrong. Maybe they put 500 to 1 when they should have put 5 to 1. Is that fair enough to void it?
Yes, I think that is right. I think that but I think that somebody. But the thing is, that really someone who puts 500 1 instead of 5 to 1, they know, don't they? And if you said, "Oh, listen, I wanted to bet,"
yeah, if you're the punter,
the Premier League,
you haven't really done anything clever here. You've done something slightly deceitful, really.
Yeah, I think that's. I
mean, morally, is that? Do you find it? I don't know. How do you stand on the morals of it? Is that a bit dodgy?
Well, I think it happened. I mean, there is so many dodgy things that I've pretty much done over the years.
This is it. We were talking. You just told that story about the boxing the other week, where you had a bet and it hadn't been confirmed, and the guy got knocked out. You basically put the phone down. Some people would say, well, that's a little bit dodgy. I sort of thought it was quite funny, and I didn't really have a problem with that. But it's a grey area, isn't it? All these things.
Yeah, but there's been so many times. There's so many times in the past where I've rang up a bookmaker, back in the days on the phone or online, where I've rung a bookmaker and requested a handicap on, say, for an American football team or a rugby team, and that team have broken down the other end and scored a try. They've taken my money. They've accepted. They've taken my money.
Yeah,
off
with
me.
the in running, it's very difficult, isn't it? The whole.
It works itself out over a period of time. There's sometimes where I've had a little bit of an edge in my case, and sometimes the bookmakers have had me over.
But with the McCaffrey one, I mean, clearly, the price is going to be competed. I can't remember what the new price was on Mason's yards, but let's say it was, 46.5 or something. He had been 13.5. it's not like it is a grey area. It's either one or the other. If McCaffrey doesn't play, it's 40 or 50 yards higher than if he does play. And if you know that McCaffrey's not going to play, well, you've got the benefit. If I was a guy who had a bet 3 days before when McCaffrey was perhaps slightly doubtful to play or doubtful to play the full game, is that different from somebody that has a bet when we already know that McCaffrey's out?
I think that's very different. But also I think part of the blame is on the bookmaker as well for not being ahead of the market. I mean, when we were bookies and we were trading markets, we had to be out covering that market. So, for example, I remember there's tennis tournaments where there'd be there's a tournament this week in the Far East where there's 3 players in the draw by the name of Wang, X Wang. And you could walk in a betting shop and bet X Wang at the biggest price, 40-1. There's one of them who's 6-1, one of them who's 20-1, and one who's 40-1. You could
put glad X you told me. Now I know what I'm doing this afternoon.
There you go. But but you need to be telling people. You need to be addressing to the telephone staff. Be very careful of bets on Wang. There's 3 Wang. Make sure
Watch your Wangs.
Watch your Wangs. So also, it's many years ago, some of the things that I used to do. There was an FA Cup final famously where Liverpool played Sunderland many years ago, and there was 3 players who played in that final with the name Rush as their surname. Ian Rush was the favourite. There's Sunderland had a guy called Rush, and I think there was another 2 guys called Rush. And as kids, we were going around betting shops having £10 on Rush to score the first goal and the last goal, but putting 33-1. And when Ian Rush scored the first goal, we went in trying to collect the 33-1. But as a bookmaker, you have to be aware of that kind of stuff. If it's your market, you have to be on top of it. Now, there isn't somebody who takes ownership or responsibility of a sports book themselves, who's the trader of the NFL, the trader of the soccer.
So what's your definition of palpable? Like, where do you draw the line? On the McCaffrey ones, would you say that it would be fair to leave all the bets that were done before he was officially announced as scratched, but to avoid all the ones that came in the minutes after the news came out?
Well, I think on that occasion I'd have to honour him because I was too slow to react to the news. I think I'd have to. I think I would.
I mean, also from a PR point of view, it's probably not like hundreds and hundreds of bets. It might just be dozens, and it probably doesn't cost them that much to honour it. But
well, there was a situation only 2 weeks ago in the tennis. Sean Calvert and myself had backed a player called Yang to win the tournament at Winston-Salem. He put him up on Game Bet Match as a tip. And Zhang was his name, and he was tournament favourite. He got back. I think we bet him at 10-1, and he got down to about plus 250. And he pulled out of his last 16 match, and he was due to play a guy called Lorenzo Sonego, and Sonego obviously got through to the quarterfinal. Sonego was 16-1 to win the tournament, but he'd got a bye against the tournament favourite, so I knew that.
So now he's going to be in the semis.
He'd be 5-1, 6-1. He'd be in the quarters. He'd be 5-1, 6-1, and the draw had opened up, so the top half of the draw was really weak. Now a lot of sportsbooks had Sonego in the betting at 12 and 14-1. 10 years ago, I would have bet that. I would have just gone on and bet it, and if everyone said that Seeley's a scoundrel or words to that effect or even stronger. But now I thought to myself, I shouldn't be doing it.
It's going to look bad. It gives me a bad name. Bad.
And Sonego went on and won the tournament. He went on and won the tournament. I didn't do it. But 10 years ago, I would have had no problem doing it. And a lot of people would have had no problem doing it.
But also I kind of agree with you. I would not go. If you said to me, I've just heard McCaffrey's out, we can quickly bet over Mason. We've got, we might have 5 minutes before they notice. I would say, no, I'm not going to do that. That just makes me look bad. But if you said to me on the Tuesday, I think there's a chance that McCaffrey doesn't play this weekend, and we should probably just have a little bet on Mason just in case, I would think, well, that's a smart angle. We're just playing a smart angle there. And I wouldn't really have a problem with that. And actually, if they voided my bet, if I had placed a bet, the second after it was announced, I wouldn't really complain because I knew I was doing something a bit deceitful. But if they voided my bet and I'd bet it on the Tuesday, I would think that's a bit out of line. I was having a bit more foresight than they did. And, you have to be able to sometimes benefit from having a bit of foresight. Do you think is that kind of where you draw the line?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think that is the right strategy to do. And if someone's got news ahead of you, that's part of gambling. You trainers
Well, also,
and horses.
if you're better, where do you draw the line? I mean, weather in NFL is a massive thing. If you find out that there's going to be, very windy, lots of gusts of wind, or later in the year, NFL is a winter sport. There's a lot of snow. And sometimes, I remember a game years and years ago, there was a game in San Francisco where there was torrential rain. And this was in the very early days of the internet. And I'd literally rung up the newspaper in San Francisco and told them some nonsense story about how I worked for the Press Association or something. And we were covering some story about their weather. And could they tell us, what the weather was going to look like over the next 4 hours, and how was it going to affect the NFL game at Candlestick Park. And the guy told me everything I needed to know. The bookies in the UK had no clue. And I was able to bet under 45 or something like that. And, it went off 36. For me, if anybody had said that was a palpable error, I would have said you're abusing what we mean by palpable error. For me, palpable error is when somebody types something in wrong.
That's correct.
Somebody puts the handicap the wrong way round, or they
instead
put
of
500 to 1 when it should be 5 to 1 because they had a fat finger on the keyboard. I don't think it should be for people having knowledge. But then the inside knowledge stuff, I don't know. I don't really. It's so tricky, isn't it? Because we talked we talked about sort of past posting. What do you call it? When you bet after the result is known. When the internet wasn't a thing, I remember ringing up a tennis venue once to ask them what time the final started, and they told me it was already 1-all. And I had a bet on 2-1 to the favourite, and she won. I don't think I felt an ounce of guilt about that, and I don't think I have since. The bookmaker I did it with were pretty horrible anyway. I don't know. What do you think about that? Goes back. Does that make me a bad person?
No, at the time, I think they were the kind of things that people you were getting away with it then. There was no sort of, no one would know 2 days later that match started 2 hours, so you got away with it. Now, if I bet that tennis player at Senego, another guy would have bet it 5 minutes later, another guy would have bet it 5 minutes later, another guy would have bet it, and all of a sudden you're in this kind of after timer club where they've got you down straight away. There's 10 of these guys, they're all betting this guy because they know he's injured. That you would be the only person who would have known that information at 2-1, and you would have got away with it unless you went crazy on the amount of stakes. One of the most famous palpable, there's a palpable story that I was used on. There was a football match many years ago, and it was in the Premier League, and it was involving Nottingham Forest. It might be Aston Villa, I can't remember, but the player played for Nottingham Forest or Aston Villa. But whatever it was, the team had a striker crisis. They had no strikers. And there was a centre defender called Richard Schumacher who was playing for either Forest or Aston Villa. Anyway, they had to play Richard Schumacher as a striker. And I got told that he was playing as a striker about 3 hours before. He was 50-1 to score the first goal and 50-1 to score the last goal. So at the time, I think I had $10 on him to score the first goal, $10 to score the last goal. Neil, it was the worst. You could have done a better job than him. It was absolutely diabolical. He never had a shot at target. But when the team news come out and they saw that he played up front, he went to 7-1 favourite. Well, they tried to they closed my account on the back of that one bet, and then if it had won, I knew I would have had all kinds of problems getting paid. Now that's not a palpable error.
I don't think it is. Although, having said that, when we worked in the industry all those years ago, I remember I put something up once, similar kind of thing. There was an injury or something, and 8 people had played on it. I just called up the 8 people and said, look, you can keep the bet if you want, but I'm telling you now, whether it wins or loses, it will be the last bet you ever have with us. The account will be closed the second it's finished. You'll get paid out if you win, but you won't have another bet ever. The alternative is you can cancel it, and we'll forget this sorry incident ever happened, and we'll still love you. And generally speaking, they just went, okay, I'll cancel the bet. Fair enough.
They were marked on their account and never got a bet ever again anyway. So they were in a no-win position. They were in an absolute no-win position. But you know what? Yeah, the one thing, before we leave the subject behind, I want to just like all these kind of things. You know, if politicians can bet when the election is, I want to know what that poor man did that he cheated on gambling that he got in prison for. What has he done?
Remember
he must have done something absolutely.
I'm going to look it up.
Well, I don't
know. It's interesting. I mean, these questions, I think they're not black and white, are they? I don't know.
No.
And also, I do think there's a different feeling stateside than there is over this side of the pond. I think generally lots of people complain about the Palpable error rule over here, but I think if you think about it, you can see the reasons why it has to exist. It's just that there's no one. Our regulator isn't really a very good regulator, as you said.
That is the difference.
It needs somebody to police it. Do you want to hear my best ever?
Before I want to hear that,
okay.
but I want to tell you a very quick story
go on,
about
tell me,
something. And before we're going to finish off with your story. But this is talking about talking about insider trading and talking about various different things which are right and wrong. I know a very, 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 very funny story, about a professional football player, and this professional football player was a high-profile football player, and he was playing for Arsenal at the time. And a sportsbook in the UK were betting on where he would move to his next club. And this fella was introduced to the sportsbook. I'm going back like 20 odd years ago. This fella was introduced to the sportsbook by a mutual friend of mine, and he was getting obviously a kickback on the money that he'd lost. As an introducer. And he got a telephone call at 10 o'clock at night complaining about this football player. And the football player rang up the sportsbook in his own name, asked where he would be signing for next season, was told he called the bet. I think he wanted 10,000 on a certain football club that he was going to. And he was very politely refused the bet, and he couldn't understand why. He actually rang up in his own name to find out.
I mean, to be fair, football players are not always the smartest cookies in the box.
I'm sure I can get away with having a 5-timer on the Champions League or Europa League football, or a knockout punch.
Okay, so
after
I've got the best
story
match about this kind of stuff. So I was playing poker. I'm not going to name this guy because I didn't ask him whether I could tell this story, and he's a great guy, and he's around. I have no idea whether he'll hear this podcast, but I was playing poker with this guy. He was very young at the time, and I was probably playing in a smaller poker tournament than I normally played in. It was in London, and I have to say, at the time, I was probably considered to be maybe the best player in London, or one of the best players in London. So this kid came onto my table. He's a young kid, and I think he was a little bit slightly in awe of playing on the table with me, and it was a kind of a big deal to him. So I could see that, and he seemed like a very nice kid, so I was super polite to him, and we had a very nice time, and we laughed and joked during the evening, and he got knocked out or something, and I went over and shook his hand. He became a Facebook friend with me, and whatever. Anyway, I didn't really. The story then moves on some years, and I haven't really had much interaction with this kid in the interim period. But suddenly, I get a message on Facebook from him saying, "How do we go about now?" Prince William and Kate, whatever they call her, Princess Kate, do they call her? I don't know what she's called.
Princess of Wales, Prince and Princess of Wales now, aren't they?
Oh, there we go. So they were going to get married, and so traditionally, American people probably find this quite funny. Whenever there's a royal wedding, the bookies over here always try and find things to put bets on because it's in the press and they're going to get some publicity. So they decided to put some prices up on what song they would dance to as their first dance at the wedding reception. And this guy messaged me, this kid from the poker tournament years and years earlier, who I hadn't heard from for years, messaged me and said, how do we go about getting a bet on the first song that they dance to at the reception? And I said, well, I expect it is something that people have. I haven't really looked at it. Let me see which companies are doing it. So anyway, one company who's around now in the States as well as in the UK were a bit mean. They had a list of songs. I think they had 20 songs. But if you wanted another song that wasn't one of their 20, they just said, no, we've only got those 20 available. And I said, well, what happens if it's not one of those? Do you just keep all the money? And they basically said, yes. So that seemed like a funny way of doing it. And they didn't have the song that we were interested in. So they were no good to us. So we went to this other company who had a list of 10 songs. The shortest price of the 10 songs was 16 to 1, and the biggest price was 50 to 1. But unfortunately, the song that we wanted was not one of their 10 songs. So I called them up and I said, well, what songs do you have? And I went through the boring thing of listening to the 10 songs, knowing that I wasn't interested in any of them. And then I said, well, what happens if I want to bet on another song that's not one of the 10? Well, you'll have to ask us which song you want, and then we'll go away and think about the price, and we'll come back and tell you. So I said, okay, leave it with me. I'll have a think about it. So this company has betting shops in the UK. So I thought, well, this is good. I can go into these little bookie stores, and once I've established a price, I'll be able to visit each store and have just a $20 or something in each one, and then I'll get more money on. So I said to him, okay, I think we're going to be able to do this. I'm going to find out, but, I think we'll get at least 16 to 1. Do you want to tell me the name of the song so that you want to bet on? So he told me the name of the song. And I thought, right, okay, how am I going to do this? Because I need the bookie shops to know what the price is. But I don't want every bookie shop to ring up headquarters and ask them for the price, because then they'll realise there's a guy going around from shop to shop betting on the same song, and this won't pan out as I hoped. So I went in the first shop and I said to them, do you have the Royal Wedding First Dance? Yeah, we do. Yeah, 16 to 1, some song that it was never going to be. I said, okay, well, I have, I'm interested. There's a different song that I'm interested in that you haven't got. How do I get that? Well, you tell me the song and I'll ring up and ask them. And I thought, well, I know how I've watched this movie before. If I tell them the song that I want, it's suddenly going to be the favourite, which whatever name I say, they're going to say, oh, yes, that one is only 4 to 1. So I said, well, I'll tell you what's happened. I've had a dream last night. I've had a dream that I was at the royal wedding, and they were just about to start dancing, and the song came on, and I said, and when I woke up vividly, I could remember the song. It was the first that I've been singing it all day to myself. It's all I can. It's in my head now, and I just want to bet that my dream comes true. So I'm going to tell you the name of the song, and you're going to go and ask them for the price, and then I'm going to have a bet. So she said, okay, what's the name of the song you'd like? So I said, well, I've got a feeling whatever song I say is going to turn out to be the favourite one when you come back. So I'm going to give you 3 songs that I might have dreamt about, and then you can go and ask for a price on those 3 songs, and you can come back and tell me what the price is. So she's laughing her head off, this woman. She rings up head office. She's on the phone. Yeah. And it's Neil Channing there, is it? Yeah, okay. I don't know how she knew it was me. Like, I've never met this woman in my life. I don't think I'd ever been in this shop. She went, okay. She comes off the phone. She says, they said, whatever song you want, you can have 16 to 1. The only bet you're allowed is 50 quid. The second you've had the bet, you can leave the shop and never come back. And we're not betting on it anymore, and don't go in any other shops and ask them. So I said, all right, I'd like 50 quid on Ellie Goulding to be singing your song, the Elton John classic. Thank you very much. 16 to 1. Here's my ticket. And I came in the next week to collect my £850.
You know,
3 weeks later, curiosity got the better of me, and I messaged my mate and I said, thanks very much for that. I really appreciate it. And he said, well, I owed you one because all those years ago you were so nice to me when we played that poker tournament, and I felt like I needed to do you a good turn when I could. And I said, well, just tell me, how did you know that that was going to be the song? And he said, well, he said, when I first messaged you, I just left the practice session and the sound check.
That is very, very good. I thought you were going to say the person on the other phone who said you have £50 and walk out the shop, never come back, was the same person you spoke to when you were avoiding those bets. He remembers you from the time that you avoided his bets all those years ago. I mean, we're going to run out of time here, but I can tell you a brilliant story about Strictly Come Dancing, which is Dancing on the Stars. I'm going to save that to you for the next time we come on the show.
I don't know, but did I have inside knowledge? Should I have been voided?
You did,
was
but
it
the
a
thing is,
palpable error? Morally, did I do something wrong?
What you did, Neil, you got inside information. There was a market they were betting on, but they know it's up for. They know they're up for. You know, they know people are going to know information. They do it as a PR. But you probably saved them money. By your 800 quid, if you passed on to 10 other people, you've actually saved them money. So don't worry about that. You've actually saved the bookie money on that occasion. But that's the thing when you bet on these things. I mean, I remember Super Bowl many years ago. One bookmaker went up on what the first song that the Super Bowl song would be by U2, and they had Beautiful Day at even money. It was the best even money on the show. It's not going to be Sunday Bloody Sunday, is it? I mean, even money, Beautiful Day. It was absolutely picking up money off the street. Okay, that's been it really from Dojo. I suppose the one thing we must say, the Palpable wearer, it's a very big talking point. Let us know your comments on the link below here on the show. What do you think?
I'll be interested to know, especially tell us in the comment if you have an opinion, whether you're American or whether you're from this side of the water, because I think there'll be a difference of opinion. I think people from stateside think that it's nonsense that bets can be voided, whereas people over here perhaps understand it a bit more. I'll be interested to hear.
Yeah, I think we just accept it as well as Brits. We just accept. I mean, you go to when you go to a hotel and Americans want good standards, we just accept it. British people are sort of much more laid back. They sort of accept, okay, yeah, it was a mistake. It's not a problem. The Americans, they won't accept it. So, and I think obviously it's the governing bodies and the regulators, the lawmakers, and that's the problem we're missing from our side over here. And I think that's why people have to abide by the rules and be on top of their game stateside. We get away with it a little bit more over here. What have they got to do, Neil? What have you got to do on this podcast if you're watching this podcast?
Well, they're doing it now. They're hitting like. They're pressing the subscribe button because, actually, I don't think anyone hit the thumbs down yet. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Put a comment, though, if you've got one. And do hit like, do hit subscribe.
There we go. Lots more funny stories to come. We're going to more topics. Talking of topics, that was your favourite chocolate biscuit, wasn't it? Topic on the day.
Yeah, they don't do them anymore. Sad days. No topics for Neil. That's been it for the Betting Weekly Dojo. We'll be back next Monday. It was a day late today because I was travelling back from my holiday. Landed back early hours this morning, so we come on the Tuesday here. If there's any comments you want, any questions you have for myself and Neil, please put it in the comments box as well. Let us know your thoughts about the palpable error rule. And like Neil said, please like and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Not subscribe, join us. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and we won't be taking any money out of your bank account. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Good luck with your bets this week, Neil, and thanks for your time.